our message is sometimes you have to step back from politics for a moment. It's not easy to do. And we recognize and agree that watching the lives lost of these Palestinian children, of these families, the fear you see in the eyes of the Israeli people, it is heartbreaking. We want to bring an end to the violence. We want to de-escalate the situation on the ground. The role we feel we can do that through, the most effective way we feel we can do that is through quiet and intensive diplomacy.
Did you catch what Jen Psaki in the White House press briefing room just said? You got to stand back on the politics. That was in response to Senate Democrats urging President Biden to call for a ceasefire. They're going to stand back. Jason, what just happened? What is she saying there? Because the far left must be throwing their sandwiches like across their lunch tables right now.
This is the Biden administration leading from behind. Quiet diplomacy when there is an active engagement of war, when there are thousands of rockets being fired into Israel. Anybody who supports, any Jewish member of the United States of America, citizen who supports the Biden administration in this setting, you have got to be kidding me. It is time for the United States to be vocal, to voice our support for Israel, to understand that, you know what, Joe Biden, when you get rid of our energy independence here in the United States of America, gas prices, oil prices go up, Iran gets money, and that money is funneled to Hamas, and suddenly there's a war. What do you think was going to happen? This is highly preventable, and the United States should take a tough stance about this, not just be quiet and say, oh, we're going to listen and see how things go. That is not the United States of America that I think most of people want.
But Jason, I mean, if you are listening to Senate Dems and some in the House as well, those far left members, I mean, hearing Jen Psaki say that they're not going to do anything is not exactly what they're hoping for either. Kayleigh, so the point I'm asking about here is that's the opposite of what they want. They're hoping that the United States is going to force a ceasefire. It's almost like they're on the side of some of the Hamas terrorists right now. I mean, they just split this atom down the middle and no one is eating.
That's exactly right. He is not giving the radical left, at least at this moment, what they want, which is a call for a ceasefire. And also, there's a report out in the Washington Post today that apparently the Biden administration has green-lighted 270 or 750 million rather in weapon sales to Israel. If that is true, good for the Biden administration for doing that, but it's certainly going to upset AOC and Rashida Tlaib and the far left Democrats. But I can tell you this, there is one language that Hamas understands, one, and it is the language of strength. They understood when President Trump cut off funding to the Palestinians. They understood when he ripped up the Iran deal and said, we're not going to give billions to Iran to then go to Hamas, to then wage these deadly wars against Israel. They understand strength, and they also understand weakness. And immediately upon taking office, you have Biden green-lighting the funding to the Palestinians, exploring getting back into the Iran deal. And what do you have? Hamas seizing on that weakness.
It just felt to me, Molly, as she was speaking, it was, in fact, a walk back. It had to be, for all the reasons why that Kayleigh is pointing out. And if you're Bernie Sanders, if you're Elizabeth Warren, if you're in the far left in the Senate and you've been speaking up, what does this say? I mean, you're going to spend money to help Israel. You're going to do those things, and it's quiet diplomacy. I mean, this... did they just find out that, no, they're actually not wearing the pants? Is Biden making a stance? I don't know. What do you make of it?
Well, first off, if you were paying attention to what's been happening the past few days, it's just been horrible to see. And I think everyone does look and feel awful about we just wish there would be peace in this area, and we pray for peace. But I do think this is, insofar as it relates to American politics, it really does show a difference between this Trump foreign policy and the Biden foreign policy, which is very similar to the Obama foreign policy. Biden and Obama are very similar on this. There was this, immediately after being inaugurated, Biden announced that he was returning aid to the political groups. Trump administration hadn't liked that because that aid is frequently used for terrorism. In April, they gave, $200 billion to the Palestinian organizations, and now we're having this situation. But it is part of a bigger issue. Do you want to have a strong group of people who can check the power of Iran or not? And the Biden administration very much wants to return to that old way of looking at it where Iran kind of controls the region. And this is, it's one of these things where it's kind of falling apart very quickly. We just had in the last year all of these peace accords, these economic normalization agreements. Things were going very well. When you change the funding, when you change your policy and whatnot, it actually does affect peace in this region.
You didn't just change the policy and the funding. You told the terrorists that it's time to come and get some cash. Like and by the way, we have a banner up that says working on a ceasefire with quiet diplomacy, because that's what Jen Psaki, if you're just tuning in, the White House press briefing. This is actually not very quiet, Jason. Like this has gone on. Netanyahu says it's going to go on because they want to make sure that they do not have the capacity, Hamas, not the Palestinian people who are caught in the middle of this, but the terrorists who are running their country, do not have the ability to kill Israelis across Gaza border. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty reasonable response when you have literally more than 1,000 rockets lobbed into you. When you have Bernie Sanders and others taking issue with helping and assisting with the, for instance, Iron Dome that Israel has. Well, the Iron Dome, the weapon system that Israel has, is a defensive system, so they can shoot down these bombs that would otherwise kill and maim untold numbers of people. And when you have another side who will not recognize the mere existence of Israel and Israel's right to exist, you can see why it's a tumultuous time. But this was not a problem with Donald Trump. He understood peace through strength and making sure that Iran, who is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, was not funded. But when Biden decides to, hey, let's make sure they're rich and they've got funding, guess what happens? Rockets start flying.
Yeah. Emily, I just want to reiterate what Jen Psaki said with one sentence. Our message is sometimes you have to step back from politics for a moment. How do you think that's being received on the Hill?
Poorly if people see that this is a simply invertebrate reaction in line with how the administration operates. What I didn't hear from her comment was a condemnation of Hamas. I did not hear a condemnation of the Iran state sponsor of terrorism funding this. I didn't hear a condemnation of her by the Palestinian Authority's encouragement of this, nor did I hear a plan of action from her that would actually work. Intensive diplomacy clearly didn't work through Biden's prior 47 years of service, nor is it working now. Again, this spineless approach, we're seeing it as well, for example, with the emergency at the southern border. All of a sudden, they want to find out the root causes in the Northern Triangle countries and things that do not work. This is an emergency situation there, and Israel needs our support. I also think it demonstrates an extreme fissure in the party that might break their back in 2022. Even, for example, California Congressman Brad Sherman, who introduced a bill last month before this conflict arose, calling out Palestinian Authorities' textbooks in Palestine with blatant anti-American imagery and content. We need to look at this, and yet this administration is funding it. So it's clear what position the United States should take. What is not clear is whether this administration will actually take it.
All I can look at now is that border, that live picture we've been watching, and the word border to our south, and now with our strongest ally in the Middle East. It is something that the White House just seems to stumble on. They can't figure out how to handle a border.